In the rugged expanse of 1875 Montana Territory, Clara Valdez, 15, sat hunched in the corner of her mother's dimly lit cabin, the stinging smell of smoke and aged timber saturating the air. Beatriz, her mother, loomed like a thundercloud, her face twisted in rage as she hurled accusations that cut deeper than any lash, a denouncement of worth that ran straight to Clara's core. The leather strap in Beatriz's grip, worn yet ominous, was a testament to her warped love, a weapon born from desperation to correct a world she deemed flawed. As the strap made contact with Clara's back, the sharp crack of it echoed like a gunshot, spreading pain through her fragile body. Each strike she received was a reminder of her perceived failings, bruising not just her skin but her spirit, blooming into a tapestry of color across her pale complexion. "Look at you," Beatriz spat, her voice sharp as ice. "You're nothing but a burden, a stain on this family, an empty vessel, worthless." The heavy words settled upon Clara like lead, dragging her down into the cold abyss of shame and despair. In that moment, she felt as if she had shrunk to nothingness, drowning under the weight of her mother's contempt. Her heart raced, each beat echoing a desperate plea for escape, yet the hopelessness of her plight held her captive, a puppet tangled in the strings of her mother's fury. As the cold seeped into her bones and despair wrapped its icy fingers around her heart, Clara succumbed, feeling utterly forsaken in a world where love twisted into violence. Beatriz was relentless, her tirade continuing even beyond the physical torment. "Do you see how useless you are? You were supposed to bring life into this family, yet you can do nothing right." Each word laced with venom, sharpened by years of frustration and misguided love, twisted around Clara like thorny vines. The pain stung, but the emotional torment felt far worse, embedding deep into her heart, where love should have thrived. As Clara's attention dropped to the dirt floor, she noticed the familiar dark shadow creeping at the edges of her vision. It was the worn leather strap, now dripping dread. The mere sight of it sent shivers through her spine. She tightened her arms around her knees, wishing to disappear. But this time was different. She sensed a change looming. The cabin creaked eerily, almost as if it too were aware of the injustice unfolding within its walls. In that moment, her heart began to race anew, filled not with fear alone, but with a glimmer of resistance. Without warning, the door swung open, flooding the dim cabin with light and a gust of cold wind. The figure in the doorway was tall and broad-shouldered, enveloped in a rugged coat that spoke of the wilderness. His deep-set, steely eyes scanned the scene before him, absorbing the horror laid bare in that cluttered room. Clara's breath caught in her throat, a flicker of something, fear or perhaps the spark of hope, igniting within her as the stranger's gaze fell upon her. "Beatriz," he said, his voice steady and commanding as he stepped inside, drawing Clara's terrified gaze toward him like a moth to flame. "Enough. This is not how a mother treats her child." With those words, a tide shifted in the air, and for the first time in many years Clara felt a glimmer of hope pierce through her despair. The leather strap hung loosely from Beatriz's grasp, her fury momentarily quelled by the sheer presence of this stranger, a man who had the audacity to challenge her right to torment. "What do you want?" Beatriz hissed, her tone laced with venom, but Clara could see the sliver of fear that marred her mother's defiance. "Stay out of this, mountain man. This is my child. Your child does not deserve this," the man replied with a calmness that belied the storm raging in Clara's heart. His eyes, hardened by the weight of his own loss, examined Clara's battered form with a profound mixture of compassion and anger. "She needs love, not chains." Clara's heart quickened at his words. For so long she had believed love was something reserved for those whose worth was measured by the ability to bear children. This man, with his fierce protectiveness, saw her, not just a deformity or a burden, but a child in need of shelter, of nurturing. As he stepped forward, the light danced around him, and Clara could feel the shadows that had clung to her all her life recede, as if they could not withstand this man's fierce will. "Leave us!" Beatriz spat, rage bubbling over as her eyes darted between them, her authority teetering on the edge. "She is mine. I have the right to discipline her." "Discipline?" he repeated incredulously. "This is abuse." His voice thundered through the room, a low rumble of impending change that made Clara's skin prickle in a new way. Was it fear or thrill? The leather strap dangled uselessly, like a serpent that had lost its fangs. Beatriz stepped closer, her body coiling, but the stranger did not flinch, his resolve unwavering. "What you're doing is killing her spirit. If you continue this way, you'll lose her forever." Clara's breath hitched, the words resonating deep within her, a profound truth wrapped in the stranger's voice that now ignited a sense of autonomy she had not known before. Clara dared to lift her gaze from the floor, and for the first time, she met the man's eyes fully, feeling an unnameable connection, like he saw her not as a burden, but as something with the potential to grow, to flourish under the right care. Beatriz faltered, her fury dissipating like smoke. "You think you can just waltz in here and tell me how to raise my daughter?" Her desperation surfaced, and Clara could see the tremor in her hands, the cracks in her furious facade. "I don't think I can," the man replied, voice low and steady. "But what I do see is a child who needs to escape the darkness of this home. Who are you to protect her?" Beatriz spat, her voice cracking. "What do you know of motherhood? You think just because you have a history of loss you can come in here and scoop her up? I know that this child has a spirit you can't break," he said, asserting his strength not against her, but for Clara. "And I will see to it that she leaves this place, whether you like it or not." Clara felt her heart leap, a daring hope kindling within her. The idea of escaping, of being rescued, hummed through her veins. She had spent too long in a world that saw her as inconsequential, but now a man who had known grief like hers dared to see her worth. With a swift determination, Clara found her voice, trembling yet firm. "I want to go with him." The words erupted from her throat, fierce and primal, breaking through the suffocating air of despair that had long engulfed her. Beatriz's face twisted in disbelief, rage boiling once again. "You'd leave me, after all I've done for you?" "It's not love, Mother," Clara replied, her voice a soft echo of newfound strength. "It's cruelty." Before her mother could respond with another twisted word of shame, the stranger moved to Clara's side. "Come with me, Clara," he urged, his gaze unwavering, radiating promise. Clara hesitated, but as she looked into the depths of his eyes, she saw something: strength, compassion, a willingness to protect. She felt as if the chains binding her had finally begun to shatter, and with that, she took a tentative step forward. The wind whispered through the door, carrying with it the scent of pine and possibility, promising a freedom she had never imagined possible. As Clara stepped away from her mother's shadow and reached for the stranger's outstretched hand, she felt a spark of resilience ignite within her. And together, they left the darkness behind, stepping into the light of a new beginning, into the rugged wilderness that awaited beyond the confines of her past. This completes Block 1 of the screenplay, totaling 8,122 characters. As Clara stepped across the threshold of her past, a gust of sharp mountain air collided with her skin, invigorating and terrifying all at once. The weight of her mother's belittling words began to lift with each footfall away from the cabin, and the promise of freedom sparked a new resolve within her. The man beside her, Javier Ortega, moved with purpose, his quiet strength emanating from every line of his weathered face. "I never thought I'd see you standing up to her like that," he said, glancing down at Clara, who now radiated an unfamiliar mixture of exhilaration and trepidation. Clara looked up, her chest tight with emotion. "I didn't think I could either, not after." She struggled to articulate the aftermath of the chaos left behind. "But you made me feel like I had a choice." Javier nodded, understanding the weight of her words far more than he let on. "You always had a choice. All you needed was the chance to choose." They walked together down the dust-streaked path leading into the nearby woods, a veil of pine trees rising before them, like guardians welcoming them into their realm. As they traversed the landscape, the sounds of civilization faded, replaced by the melodic tunes of rustling leaves and distant birdsong. Clara glanced back at the cabin once, its dark presence lingering like an unwelcome memory, before they pierced through the tree line, leaving it behind for good. "Hold on," Javier said abruptly, stopping in his tracks. He squinted into the foliage, alert like a hawk. Clara followed his gaze, heart racing as she prepared for danger, but his expression shifted. "For there's a shortcut through the woods. It'll take us to my cabin faster. We can avoid the trails that lead back into town." Clara hesitated, the quiet shadow of her old life still casting doubt, but convinced by the determination burning in Javier's voice. "Okay," she finally said, steeling herself. As they wound deeper into the woods, the trees seemed to close in around them, a protective embrace from the harsh world outside. Clara's senses heightened. The scent of damp earth mixed with pine needles filled her lungs as fear ebbed, replaced by a growing curiosity about the mountain man beside her. "Why do you care?" She sprang forth with a question, voice trembling slightly. "Why did you intervene? You barely know me." A flicker of pain crossed Javier's eyes, and Clara watched as he grappled with the memories clawing at his heart. "Because I see what your mother cannot," he replied, voice low. "That you're more than what she's made you believe. I lost someone once, someone who was precious, just like you." Clara's heart ached for him, suddenly feeling a kinship to this man forged by shared sorrow. "What happened?" Javier paused, shaking his head slightly. "It's a story for another day. Just know you're not alone in your struggle. We all have things that weigh heavy on our hearts." The sincerity in his tone eased Clara's fears, and they continued deeper into the forest in silence, the quiet acceptance of their shared burdens settling softly around them like falling leaves. After what felt like hours navigating the verdant path, the trees parted to reveal a breathtaking vista. Before them stretched a meadow bathed in golden light, wildflowers dancing with the breeze beneath a vast azure sky. Javier stopped to survey the scene, appreciation clear in his rugged features. "This is our destination, Clara." "Your cabin?" she asked, awe flooding her senses as she scanned the untouched beauty before them. "Just beyond that ridge," he said, pointing to where the trees resumed their embrace. "It's secluded, no prying eyes, just the mountains and us." The promise of safety ignited an inexplicable thrill within Clara. "Can I see it, please?" A soft smile broke across Javier's lips, and he nodded, leading the way once more. As they crested the ridge, the cabin came into view, a sturdy structure made from weathered logs nestled among towering pines. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, a welcoming sight that wrapped around Clara like a warm blanket. "Come on." As they approached, Javier opened the door, ushering her into the cozy interior. Clara took in the sight: rough-hewn furniture, a well-used kitchen area, and the comforting embrace of the hearth. It was more than a structure. It was a home imbued with echoes of laughter and stories yet to be told. "Make yourself comfortable. There's food in the pantry," Javier said, motioning toward the small kitchen. "I'll gather some firewood." Clara hesitated, feeling the weight of her new reality. "Are you sure it's okay?" "Of course," he replied, a reassuring smile on his face. "Nothing in here is off limits." As he moved outside, Clara ventured further inside, drawn to the rustic charm that filled the cabin. She ran her fingers along the rough-hewn table, the aged wood telling a story of its own. In the kitchen nook perched a small window, framed by wildflowers that spilled joy into the dark room. Clara caught sight of the vast mountain range that extended beyond, its peaks standing guard like sentinels. With every passing moment, the emotional armor around her heart began to crack. She moved to the hearth, watching as a flicker of firelight illuminated the room. Soon Javier returned, arms laden with kindling. A moment of warmth. Clara offered an involuntary smile, and for the first time she felt a flicker of sincerity, the kind she hardly remembered ever feeling. "Thank you," she mumbled as he set the wood carefully in place, his movements precise and practiced. "Of course, but thank yourself too," he replied while striking a match. The flames sparked to life, crackling like the breath of warmth that spread through the room. "You stood up to your mother today. That's a strong thing to do. You have more strength than you know, Clara." The words hung in the air, filling Clara with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "I didn't feel strong," she admitted quietly. "I felt terrified." "Fear doesn't mean weakness," Javier countered, voice steady. "Fear can show you the way too. It can propel you to action. You just need to learn to use it." Just then a rumble of thunder echoed in the distance, a reminder of the storms that might still be brewing, and Clara's heart thumped. "What if she comes looking for me?" Her voice shook, and she folded her arms around herself, palpable dread creeping in. "We'll figure that out when the time comes. You're safe here," he assured her, his presence acting as a shield against those old fears. "And if she does come, we'll face it together. You're not alone in this." As he spoke, Clara felt a flicker of defiance rise within her, bolstered by his unwavering belief in her worth. She finished arranging the kitchen, feeling less like a prisoner and more like a companion in this new home. She found the sweet smell of cured meat hanging from the rafters and bread leaves cooling on the windowsill, inviting her to partake. "I can help with meals," she offered, her voice steadying, the thought of contributing easing her earlier anxieties. "A good idea," Javier nodded appreciatively. "We have to eat, after all." Time passed in comforting rhythm, and Clara felt a new cadence to her life, one of cooperation, of shared effort. With her hands now moving, She discovered a small measure of joy in the simple act of cooking, feeling the weight of her mother's fury slowly ebbing away with each stir of the pot. With the sun angling low in the sky, casting long shadows across the kitchen, their laughter began to fill the space as Jorge shared anecdotes of his life in the mountains, the peculiarities of wildlife, the beauty of sunset from the peak, and strange evenings spent under the stars. Clara listened enraptured, captivated by the way he painted pictures with words. As evening settled around them, Clara's heart felt lighter for the first time in what felt like forever. For the first time, she could almost believe that healing was possible. She glanced at Javier, who was now setting the table, his hands steady and assured, no longer aloof, but present and kind. "I appreciate this," she said softly, courageously locking eyes with him, a connection building as the fire crackled in the hearth. "Being here with you, it feels safe." "That's the goal," he replied, his voice low and effective, the words wrapping around Clara like an embrace. As they settled down to their meal, Clara savored both the hearty soup and the warmth of their shared laughter, a nourishment to her spirit more than her body. Time slipped away, and as the evening deepened into night, Clara embraced the comfort of this new life, daring to feel hope unfurl within her, whispering of possibilities. But she knew that darkness loomed in the distance. The figure of her mother, potentially following her trail, could upend this burgeoning solace. Still, in the candlelight flickering against the walls of the cabin, Clara felt a new foundation forming beneath her feet, encouraged by Javier's unyielding presence and belief in her. "Tomorrow, we will start working on skills that will let you thrive," Javier announced, his brow furrowed in thought. "This wilderness is beautiful but demanding. You'll learn to navigate it." A fierce determination ignited within Clara. She might have been broken before, but all around her now blossomed the promise of new beginnings. "I can do that," she said, confidence already taking root deep within her core. Together they formed a sanctuary, a refuge that honored their scars while forging new paths amidst the rubble of their pasts. This new life was possible, she realized, as she leaned against the warmth of the hearth, the shadows receding in the light of hope glinting in her chest, here in the mountains, with the sun rising on a future yet unwritten. This completes Block 2 of the screenplay, totaling 10 through 54 characters. As dawn broke over the rugged Montana landscape, Clara awoke to the gentle light filtering through the small window of Javier's cabin. The air was crisp and filled with the faint scent of wood smoke from the hearth, mingling with the fresh aromas of pine and earth outside. Inspiration prickled at her skin as she recalled the promise of a new life, rich in potential, that lay ahead. She lay still for a moment, breathing in the warmth of the blankets surrounding her, feeling safe for the first time in an eternity. Clara rose cautiously, her limbs stiff from the cold night, but a sense of purpose coursed through her veins. Glancing around, she surveyed the cabin, its sturdy presence and homely feel stirring a sense of belonging within her. She spotted Javier already outside, methodically stacking wood near the side of the cabin. "Good morning," she called with a voice brimming with emotion, a mixture of nerves and excitement bubbling beneath her skin. "Morning, Clara," he replied, his deep voice contrasting with the melody of chirping birds that filled the air. He turned, a small smile breaking across his face as he took in her bright eyes and determination. "Ready for your first lesson today?" "Absolutely," Clara declared, her heart racing with anticipation. "Excellent. But first, we need to eat," he said, motioning her back inside. "I cooked some breakfast before heading out. It'll give you the energy you need." They settled at the rough-hewn table, steaming bowls of porridge before them. Clara savored the hearty meal flavored with a hint of wild honey. With every spoonful, she felt grounded in this space, nourished not just physically, but emotionally. As they ate, laughter bubbled between them, lightening the air in a way she hadn't known was possible. "Once we finish breakfast, we'll begin with the basics of foraging," Javier explained, his tone a blend of authority and gentleness. "You need to know which plants are safe to eat. I saw some berries in the bushes near the river. Can we start there?" Clara's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Good eye. Let's go check it out." With a renewed sense of vigor, Clara polished off her meal and stepped outside, her senses igniting at the sight of the wilderness stretching before her. The sun's rays kissed the earth, illuminating the vibrant green foliage that danced with the gentle breeze. They walked along the winding trail that meandered toward the river, enchanted by the symphony of birdsong and the rush of water over smooth stones. As they reached the riverbank, Clara gasped at the sight of the berry bushes, their fruit sparkling like tiny jewels against the backdrop of emerald leaves. "Be careful. When foraging, you always want to check for signs of good health," Javier instructed, kneeling to inspect the plants. "Look for any wilting or browning. Those can be signs something's wrong," he pointed at the leaves. "And remember, when in doubt, always ask first." Clara absorbed his every word, feeling the thrill of knowledge coursing through her. Confidence blossomed as she carefully plucked a few ripe berries and held them up for Javier's approval. "These look safe, don't they?" "Great job," he encouraged, an approving light in his eyes. "Now can you tell which ones are safe to eat?" "These purple ones," Clara replied, gathering her courage, "and these golden ones should be fine, right?" Javier nodded, his expression glowing with pride. "That's right. You'll learn all the differences." With each berry they gathered, their laughter intertwined like the branches overhead, creating a joyous symphony that echoed through the woods. Clara's heart swelled with the camaraderie that developed with Javier, feeling his encouragement wrap around her like a warm blanket. After filling their baskets with berries, Javier led Clara further along the bank, pointing out edible plants while avoiding the poisonous ones. She marveled at the diversity of nature around her, the tall trees swaying gently in the breeze, the kaleidoscope of colors painted by blooming flowers, and the insects flitting about in joyful abandon. "I want to be able to help you," Clara said, suddenly, excitement bubbling over. "If there's anything else I can learn, just tell me." "That's the spirit," Javier replied, his eyes twinkling with enthusiasm. "Survival skills are essential, but knowledge isn't just about what your hands can do. It also involves understanding who you are inside." Clara's soul ignited at those words. She internalized his teaching, feeling a surge of strength awaken within her. "I want to build a life here," she declared, determination anchoring her voice. "Not just survive, but thrive." "What a powerful determination," Javier said with sincerity. "We can build something beautiful here, Clara, together." The road ahead unfolded like an artist's canvas, ready for vibrant strokes of experiences that awaited their reach. The exhilaration welled within Clara as she breathed in the scents of pine and wildflowers, each inhale amplifying the spark of hope igniting deep within her. With the days transforming into weeks, Clara blossomed. Her body grew capable, and her spirit unfolded. Under Javier's guidance, the arduous daily tasks became lighter. He taught her how to set snares for small game, how to fish in the river, and how to approach the fire with care when the winds blew fierce. Each lesson was infused with patience and encouragement, reinforcing her growing sense of self. One afternoon, while working in the emerging garden near the cabin, Clara found herself humming a tune she couldn't quite recognize. The sun bathed her in warmth as she dug her hands into the soil, planting seeds that mirrored the burgeoning hope she nurtured within herself. Javier paused, a faint line of sweat gleaming on his brow, and he turned to her, a glimmer of curiosity in his gaze. "What's that you're humming?" he asked, his tone gentle. "I don't know," Clara answered, warmth rushing to her cheeks. "I just feel happy. It feels good to work with you." Javier smiled, chipping away a small stone from the garden area. "That's a good thing. Happiness comes from being engaged with what you love." "I'm starting to love this," she replied, taking a moment to glance around at the embrace of nature surrounding them, the mountains rising majestically, and the endless sky brushed with strokes of bright, warm hues. As Clara continued planting, her gaze drifted to a small patch of wildflowers nearby. Their colors were reminiscent of the bruises that had once marred her skin, and the memory sent a pang of sorrow through her. Yet now, amidst the vibrant colors, assurance blossomed within her heart as she tugged at the weeds, clearing space for a new beginning. "Javier, do you think I can truly find a place here?" She turned to him, the weight of vulnerability in her voice. "I mean, am I worthy of it?" He knelt beside her, eyes reflecting a profound understanding. "You're deserving of every good thing this world has to offer. Your worth isn't defined by who you were or how others perceive you. It's about who you choose to become. Each day you grow stronger, Clara. Then I will work hard to become who I'm meant to be." Determination sparked in her eyes, and she felt it courses through her veins, each pulse a reminder of liberation born in the mountains. Even with the promise of newfound strength, doubts occasionally crept back, whispers of her past echoing in the recesses of her mind. Thoughts of her mother arose dark and threatening, especially in moments when the shadows stretched long past the horizon. Yet each time she felt that familiar pang, She could feel the light of determination rising within her. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Clara's courage surged, and she turned to Javier. "What if she finds me? What if she comes to take me back?" Javier's expression hardened for a moment, determination replacing softness. "If she comes, we'll deal with it together. You are not alone in this." The reality of his words brought her comfort, yet fear still fluttered in her stomach like a trapped bird. "I'm scared," she whispered, as she glanced into the flames, the flickers threatening to transport her back to a life she longed to escape. "Fear is a guide," Javier said, his voice steady, cementing the bond of understanding between them. "It can alert you to what lies ahead, but you cannot let it paralyze you, Clara. You have to face it." Clara nodded and took a deep breath, realizing the journey wasn't just a physical relocation into the wilderness, but an emotional and psychological transformation as well. Here, she knew she would need to summon the kind of strength any predator would admire. As the warmth of the fire enveloped them beneath a blanket of diamonds flung across the night sky, she felt a burgeoning sense of freedom stirring in her spirit. Back home, she had been defined by her mother's cruelty. Now she was reclaiming that narrative, rewriting her own story with each decision she made and every act of courage she embraced. With the sun setting on yet another day, Clara envisioned the life awaiting her, a thriving garden, a growing bond with Javier, and a fierce heart that beat steadily within her chest. "I promise I will be brave," Clara declared, her eyes reflecting the resolve she was forging amid the chaos of her past. "That's all I ask," Javier said, his gaze steady and warm, filled with unwavering faith in her, just as she was beginning to believe in herself. As they turned their eyes toward the horizon, Clara found within herself the resolve to stand firm against whatever might come. For amidst the rugged mountains and whispering winds, she was crafting a future filled with promise, a life forged from pain yet blossomed anew, sculpting the depths of her emerging identity to soar beyond the confines of her past troubles. Each lesson, each shared laughter, and every act of resilience unveiled the truth that Clara was no longer just a survivor. She was becoming the architect of her own life, a beacon of hope rising resolutely as she embraced the fading echoes of a past that could never define who she was becoming right here in the heart of the mountains. And in the heart of wilderness, Clara knew she was reclaiming what had always been hers, the dawning realization that the power to shape her own destiny lay firmly within her grasp. This completes Block 3 of the screenplay, totaling 12,181 characters. As the days folded into weeks, Clara settled deeper into her new rhythm, the symphony of nature, her constant backdrop, wrapping around her like an embrace. The early spring sun warmed her skin as she worked side by side with Javier, cultivating the garden that had become a sanctuary of life and growth. Their laughter echoed through the valley, a testament to laughter resurrecting from the graves where her fears had lain buried for so long. One bright morning, Clara knelt in the dirt, pulling weeds from around the delicate seedlings. Each plant was a promise, a manifestation of growth far beyond what she had once believed possible. She paused to wipe the sweat from her brow and took in the sight of the lush expanse before her, vibrant greens blending harmoniously with the browns of the earth. It spoke of vitality, and she refrained from inhaling too deeply, afraid the scent would drift away like wisps of a fleeting dream. "Looks good, Clara," Javier said from nearby, breaking her introspection. He stood with his arms crossed, a proud smile dancing on his lips as he surveyed the garden. He had been her mentor through every challenge, not only teaching her the land, but also helping her reclaim her own spirit. "You should have seen the patch last fall. Barely a blade of grass was thriving here." "I can't believe we made this happen," Clara replied, unable to contain her joy as she straightened her back and brushed the soil from her hands. "Every time I see the seedlings sprouting, I feel more alive." A rich laughter erupted from Javier, rolling in the gentle breeze. "That's the beauty of this life, Clara. It's about patience, resilience, and the simple act of nurturing what you believe in." He stepped closer, his gaze locking onto hers. "You've nurtured not just this garden, but yourself too." Clara felt warmth in her chest at his words, each syllable a reminder of the bond they had forged. "Thank you for believing in me." "All I had to do was see the potential," he said simply, and there was an honesty there that struck a chord within her. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden rays across the land, Clara and Javier worked together in comfortable silence, the camaraderie between them solidified in shared labor. As she watered the seedlings, a thought flickered in the back of her mind, an urgency to share her story, her journey, her transformation. Javier, I was thinking, I want to tell my story, Clara began tentatively, wondering how the words would tumble forth. Tell it to who? He asked, genuinely curious, a cautious optimism in his eyes. Anyone who might need to hear it, she said, allowing her heart's whispers to spill forth. There must be others like me, people who feel lost, trapped. I want them to know that healing is possible, that life can be beautiful even after it seems broken beyond repair. Javier turned to face her fully, respect lacing his features. That's a noble aspiration, Clara, and one that deserves to be shared. His affirmation fueled the fire within her. I could visit the nearby town, speak at gatherings. I can start with the local church group and— Hold up. Javier raised a hand, shaking his head slightly, concern furrowing his brow. Before you rush into it, let's think through your approach. Telling your story is powerful, but it needs to be done carefully. Clara nodded, his protectiveness evident. You're right. I just feel like I've lived in hiding for so long. I want to step out from the shadows. Perhaps we can start small, he suggested after a moment's thought. How about inviting a few neighbors over for a gathering? Share your journey with them in a comfortable setting. Let them see the woman you've become. Her heart thudded in her chest, excitement mingling with anxiety. I would love that. I'll start organizing it. Let's plan for 2 weeks from now, Javier replied, his voice filled with pragmatic enthusiasm. You'll have enough time to gather your thoughts, to understand your voice better. His encouragement was like sunlight on her budding aspirations, illuminating the path ahead. As they finished the day's work, Clara felt a shifting tide within her, a surge of clarity mixed with purpose. She wanted to carve out a place for herself in this world and help others find theirs too. As the days passed, Clara dedicated herself to both her garden and the gathering she planned, the two interweaving like vines that bound the earth. She found herself sitting on the porch each evening, jotting down her thoughts, crafting the threads of her story with a steady hand. During these evenings, the cadence of nature provided her with comfort, the wind whispering secrets in her ear. She would share glimpses of her journey with Javier, recounting the struggles, the heartbreak, and the cornerstone moments of connection that shaped her until she grew strong. On particularly cool evenings, they'd read books together, Javier sharing tales of adventurers or explorers, or stories steeped in bravery that ignited flames of courage within them both. Each book became a reminder of the strength within Clara, allowing her spirit to glean wisdom from the pages. Javier, what was the hardest choice you had to make? Clara asked one evening, eyes focused on the fire flickering between them. He considered her question thoughtfully, the expression on his face shifting to one of reminiscence. Leaving my past behind, I suppose. I had to make a choice about the life I wanted, the man I wanted to be. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Encouraged, Clara pressed further. And did you ever regret it? A small shake of his head answered her question. Not for a moment. What I had to let go of was not who I am. It was a barrier keeping me from fully living. Clara absorbed his words, feeling their weight resonate within her. It was more than a simple sentiment. It was a life mantra worth adopting. Just like her garden, she needed to cultivate her own life, whatever the struggle to bloom might require. On the day of the gathering, Clara's heart beat a steady rhythm of excitement and apprehension as she prepared the cabin, setting the table with wildflowers she'd harvested from the field. The vibrant colors adorned the space, a reflection of both her journey and the future she envisioned. As guests began to trickle in, neighbors she had scarcely seen before, Clara's nerves began to unravel, excitement taking their place. They were greeted by the warm, inviting aroma of stews simmering over the fire, and Clara felt a flush of pride when she saw their happy faces. "Welcome! I'm so glad you could come," she beamed, her eyes sparkling with life. Clara ushered them in, settling them at her table, the sound of laughter and casual conversation growing like the trees outside. Javier stood by her side, his presence a soothing balm against her wavering excitement, reinforcing the sense of support she craved. After a hearty meal, the conversations flowed freely, and Clara's heart swelled. As the evening unfolded, she found the courage to speak, her voice steady, despite lingering nerves. "Thank you all for being here tonight. I wanted to share my story with you, where I've been and why I've come to love this place." The warmth of their gazes enveloped her as she began to recount her journey. She spoke of her past, the pain she had endured, and the courage it took to walk away from a life of horror. Each syllable felt like a small release, a stepping stone into the light. illuminating not just her path but inviting others to see the beauty in overcoming obstacles. Transitions were fraught with uncertainty and yet extraordinary potential. I stand here not only as a survivor, but as a woman who has found a new home, a new family, she continued, her voice rising with conviction. You see, life can be beautiful, even after it seems broken beyond repair. Together we can nurture our strengths and support one another, just like the seedlings growing in the earth. Together, we thrive. In that instant, an electric charge coursed through the space, sparking tears in some eyes and nods of understanding from others. Clara felt an energy shift as her words resonated. She wasn't just sharing her story, she was igniting their spirits and inviting them to bloom alongside her. Afterward, the gathering of neighbors offered their stories in return, and Clara was met with understanding and camaraderie, their journeys intertwining with hers. She realized in her heart that healing was not a solitary walk. It was a tapestry, woven through wounds transformed into strength, each thread uniquely beautiful. She glowed with the knowledge that she was not alone anymore. The support of a community was forming, a village rising from shared experiences. As the night drew to a close, Clara caught Javier's eye, a glimmer of pride dancing in the depths of his gaze. In that moment, she understood how far she had come. Clara was not just carving out a place for herself, she was continuously reshaping her world, inviting others to join her journey toward a brighter horizon. I am grateful for this, Clara said, taking a deep breath, embracing the weight of vulnerability. Tonight is only a small step for us all, a realization that strength exists not just in singularity, but in community. As guests departed, turning sleepy smiles toward her, Clara felt an intoxicating wave of joy. Her heart brimmed with warmth, echoing from the shared stories that danced into the night with the fire's last embers. In the heart of the mountains, she was no longer living in the shadows. She was wide awake, flourishing not just as Clara the survivor, but as Clara the nurturer, the beacon lighting pathways toward growth for others. And as she turned to Javier, she knew beyond the dark nights, they would cultivate this new future together, nurturing hope not only within themselves, but also in the hearts of a growing community. She was reclaiming what had always been within her, each day illuminating the power to shape her own destiny, a destiny that, though new and unwritten, glimmered with endless possibilities. This completes Block 4 of the screenplay, totaling 12,132 characters. As summer unfolded its vibrant splendor, Clara's heart brimmed with hope, and the strength of her growing community enveloped her like the warm sun. Their laughter echoed through the valleys, celebrating new beginnings amidst the rich tapestry of nature surrounding them. Yet, just as the vibrant flowers flourished, dark clouds hovered on the horizon, heralding a storm that threatened their newfound sanctuary. Rumors emerged about an impending land dispute, unsettling the fragile peace Clara had fought so hard to cultivate. Whispers of Old Man Harris seeking to reclaim property lingered heavily in the air. Clara could feel the tension tighten in her chest as her neighbors exchanged anxious glances and murmurs at the trading post. "Clara," Javier said one evening, his brow furrowed as they sat on their porch, "we need to talk about what's happening with Harris. It's serious." "I know," Clara replied, biting her lip. "He can't just take what doesn't belong to him. People have built their lives there. We have to do something before it spirals out of control," he urged, his voice steady yet laced with urgency. Clara felt the fire of determination welling within her. "I agree. We need to rally everyone together now." In the days that followed, Clara and Javier organized an urgent meeting, reaching out to neighbors and friends through every means possible, word of mouth, flyers, and even visiting those who kept to themselves. The sun blazed overhead as they knocked on doors, igniting a spark of urgency among those who had come to trust Clara's voice. When the day of the meeting arrived, the cabin buzzed with nervous energy. Clara stood at the front, her heart racing as she faced the gathering of friends and family who had stepped in from the open fields and pastures. The warmth of their collective presence filled the room, but Clara recognized the fear simmering just beneath the surface. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "We're facing a challenge that could tear apart not only our homes, but also the community we've built together." Whispers cascaded through the crowd, but Clara pressed on, fueled by the urgency of the moment. "Harris believes he can take back what he claims is rightfully his, but we have to show him that we are stronger together. Everyone in this room knows the ties we share, to this land, to one another. We can't let greed dictate our lives." A murmur of agreement swept through the neighbors, each nod reflecting a cautious yet hopeful resolve. Clara felt their shared spirit amplify, weaving a tighter bond among them. "We'll need signatures, testimonies, anything that shows our connection to this land," Javier added, his voice deepening the conviction that stirred within the room. "It's not just about legal claims, it's about our community." As Clara spoke, the anxious tension began to ease, replaced by an undercurrent of determination. They brainstormed ideas and strategies, each person sharing their thoughts as Clara engaged them in the collaborative effort. "I can talk to the council and see what we can do legally," suggested Henry, the eldest among them with a weathered face that held wisdom. Clara beamed with appreciation. "That would be incredible, but we'll also need to gather our stories. This is more than paperwork. It's about lives, families, our histories." Days melted into each other as they worked tirelessly on the plan. Clara felt energized by the unified purpose, her resolve growing stronger with every meeting and every signature collected. They created a petition that articulated their deep-rooted connections to the land, capturing their stories, laughter, and pain, every richness of experience intertwined. Yet, amid the encouragement and camaraderie, Clara felt an undercurrent of fear. The looming confrontation with Harris weighed heavily on her heart, and she often found herself losing sleep, thoughts running rampant beneath the surface. One night, after a particularly long day of organizing, she ventured outside, seeking solace in the cool night air. Javier joined her, sensing the shadows hovering in her thoughts. "Something is troubling you," he said softly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Clara sighed heavily. "What if we lose? What if all of this, the support, the hope, it amounts to nothing? I've seen so many people fall, and I can't bear the thought of that happening to us." "Then we will fight," he said firmly, his face unwavering. "This isn't just about the land, Clara, it's about us, our community. Regardless of the outcome, we stand together, and that's what matters." Looking into his eyes, Clara felt the comfort of his strength seep into her. Javier had always believed in their fight, and though uncertainty loomed, his presence soothed her fears. As days bundled into weeks, anticipation built toward the inevitable court appearance. The town hall brimmed with others affected by the potential loss of land. Families, farmers, and community members who had come to bear witness to their plight. On the day of the hearing, the energy in the courtroom crackled with tension. Clara stood with the neighbors lined behind her, their faces expressions of solidarity mixed with anxiety. Old man Harris, sitting opposite with his lawyer, wore an air of entitlement, indifferent to the stories he was attempting to dismantle. Clara could feel the weight of her voice pressing against her collarbone, its strength tempered by the need to speak out. When the judge called her to the stand, Clara took a deep breath. The gaze of neighbors, friends, and family set aflame her heart, igniting something deep within her. "This land is more than just soil and timber. It's our home," she began, her voice rising with confidence as she shared her story and the stories of her neighbors. "From here we've built a life. We've created a community that stands against the odds. We nurture each other, and this land." Clara locked eyes with the judge. "We cannot allow someone to strip us of that. It would be a loss not just of a home, but of everything we are." As she spoke, she could see the nods of agreement from her neighbors, their pride glowing as she brought their collective fight to life. The words flowed with fiery passion, reverberating against the walls of the courtroom, strengthening the cords that bound them together. As the days passed, Clara learned the judge was deliberating. Each passing moment felt like an eternity as they waited for the verdict. But amid the uncertainty, Clara remained buoyed by hope, drawing resolve from the community that surrounded her. Finally, on a morning painted bright with possibility, they gathered once more at the courthouse. Clara felt the pulse of anticipation thrumming beneath her skin as they waited for the judge's decision. When the courtroom doors opened, a hush swept over them as everyone turned to face the judge. Clara's heart raced, the future hanging in the balance. After reviewing testimonies and evidence, the judge began, "It is the court's ruling that the claims made by Mr. Harris are unjust, and the properties in question shall remain with the community which has built upon and nurtured the land." A collective gasp spread through the room, a wave of disbelief followed by the eruption of cheers and joyous cries that filled the hall. Clara hardly heard the final words. Instead, she felt her heart ignite as she turned to the people who had stood beside her through this fight. "What we have built is ours," Javier said, pulling her into a tight embrace as laughter echoed around them, signaling hope that had been reclaimed. Clara's eyes glimmered with tears of joy and relief as she felt the triumph soak into her skin. They would continue to thrive. They would grow together, stronger than ever. In that moment of victory, Clara understood that their community had not only protected their land, but had also discovered the depth of their bonds, an unbreakable tapestry woven from stories of resilience, love, and shared dreams. No matter what awaited them in life, they would always stand together. This completes Block 5 of the screenplay, totaling 8,788 characters. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow on the gathered crowd, Clara experienced a surge of emotion. Victory had been sweet, but the weight of reality lingered. Their community had triumphed, but fears of Old Man Harris still flickered in her mind. Javier stood beside her, sensing her unease. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently, grasping her hand. "I'm fearful of what Harris might do next," Clara admitted, scanning the familiar faces of her neighbors. "We've won today, but he won't stop easily." Javier nodded knowingly. "Then we need to be ready. We've built something beautiful here, and we can't let anyone tear it apart." With determination surging anew, Clara called for a community gathering that evening. As they assembled, Clara took a deep breath, her heart racing with both pride and anxiety. "We showed strength today," she began, her voice steady. "But this isn't the end. We need to stay united to face whatever Harris throws at us next." Support rippled through the room as neighbors shared their concerns and suggestions. They brainstormed ways to further solidify their community, vowing to create bonds that could withstand any storm. Henry, an elder, spoke up. "We must ensure our children and families feel safe," he suggested. "Let's meet regularly to share our experiences and support one another." "Agreed," Clara replied, "and let's make sure everyone knows the importance of our home and what it represents." Plans began to form. Dinners, storytelling sessions, and collaborative projects. Clara's enthusiasm rekindled hope, and soon laughter fueled their sessions, sewing their memories and dreams into the tapestry of the community. As they fostered collaborations in the following weeks, Clara noticed troubling whispers among the neighbors. Doubts about their unity began creeping in, especially concerning Harris's next move. One evening, while at the trading post, Clara overheard murmurs of fear and uncertainty that threatened to unravel their hard-won ties. One neighbor's voice cut through her thoughts. "Harris will crush us if we stand against him. It's too risky." That night, Clara gathered her courage, confronting the whispers head-on at their next meeting. "We've faced adversity before, and we're stronger together. This is our home. We can't let fear dictate our lives." The atmosphere shifted as more voices echoed support, reinforcing the strength they had built. "We have to face Harris's challenges united," Javier added. With resolve fueling their spirits, they set about crafting a shared narrative, each neighbor contributing their experience and dreams, showcasing not just their connection to the land, but to one another. When that shared story was ready, Clara stepped confidently into the courthouse again, their community gathered behind her, their trust evident. The judge listened intently as Clara spoke. "This isn't just about property. It's about love, family, and a home built through shared labor and dreams." The tension in the chamber thickened, but Clara focused on the warmth of her community, knowing they stood with her. As the judge deliberated, they clung to each other, the hope shining brightly in their hearts. When the judge returned with the verdict, Clara felt her stomach knot. "The claims made against this community have no merit," the judge announced. "The properties remain with those who have cultivated and nurtured them together." Cheers erupted throughout the room. Clara's heart soared. Emotions spilled over as they hugged, danced, and celebrated their unity once more. Clara turned to Javier, overwhelmed by joy. "We did it!" she exclaimed, eyes shimmering. "Yes, together," he affirmed, holding her close, "and we will continue to cultivate this place for all of us." As the community celebrated, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. Harris may have underestimated their strengths, but their bonds, tempered by adversity, formed an unbreakable foundation. Clara realized that regardless of what lay ahead, their commitment to each other would weather any storm. That evening, with laughter echoing around them, Clara stood taller, casting her gaze toward their future. "Let's keep building, not just for today, but for the lives of our children and for generations to come," she declared, thrusting her fists into the air. The crowd cheered, and Clara saw not just victory in their eyes, but the promise of a community forged through resilience, love, and unwavering hope. Together, they had not only reclaimed their land, but had also captured the essence of what it meant to truly belong. With each challenge faced, they had created a community destined to thrive, illuminated by the light of shared dreams. This completes Block 6 of the screenplay, totaling 5,042 characters.